There are many reasons why endangered languages matter. Some of the most important are that people express their knowledge and culture through languages, that they serve important aesthetic functions, that they constitute tools of empowerment, and that they inform linguists on linguistic rules and language universals.
That said, we must note that most attempts of language documentation serve in particular the last point. In other words, endangered languages are documented and studied in a way which mainly reflects the interests of linguists. Endangered language documentation focuses and departs from a perspective we may call language as a system. Departing from such an ontological stance, typical documentation activities entail word lists, folk tales, or elicitation of information of a given language system. According to such a documentation focus, the subjects of research are highly proficient, but usually elderly, speakers of an endangered language.
Languages are, however, much more than merely systems. Languages are embedded in and constitutive of diverse language ecologies. They are decisive for how one places oneself in the world and navigates through daily life. Languages are resources with which we express our thoughts, emotions, or display diverse identities in everyday communication. For speakers of endangered languages, these, and not the language system issues, are the main reasons why the survival of endangered languages matters. We may call this the language as a practice perspective. If language documentation is to be supportive of language maintenance, and I would see no reason why it should not, then language documentation requires the integration of existing approaches to the study of languages and of language maintenance activities. This in turn necessitates three shifts with regard to research orientation. A shift from system to practice also requires a shift from descriptive linguistics to interactional and ethnographic linguistics, and a shift from monolingual to multilingual ideology.
The idea underlying the language as a system perspective is that of language as a purely referential tool. However, language is always indexing speakers, their relations to listeners, or the context. In other words, language is always situated and thus best studied in language practices. How people use language and for what. With regard to maintaining endangered languages, such perspective is important because endangered languages are embedded in a cultural, social, economic, and political ecology which is hostile to their maintenance. Maintaining languages requires adjustment of this ecology and the development of new functions and domains for the endangered language. Language maintenance requires bringing language to the fore in an adjusted, self-sustaining ecology where it can coexist with a powerful language which is currently replacing it. That said, it is clear that we need information on how language maintenance for a given language is possible, and which set of specific problems need to be addressed towards this end. It is equally clear that a language as a system perspective provides little information on these issues. It is for this reason that a shift from descriptive to interactional linguistics in endangered language studies is highly desirable. Other than elderly and highly proficient speakers, we also need to focus on intergenerational communication and transmission practices. In doing so, a third shift must be imposed. We need to stop studying endangered languages as if they were the only language in the language repertoire of their speakers. All endangered language speakers are multilingual speakers. Language use thus involves language choices, code switching, language mixing, interference, and so on. In other words, endangered and replacing languages do not coexist in isolation from another. And those seeking to support the maintenance of endangered languages need to take account of this relationship. This may best be done on the basis of documented data. All in all, we need to shift away from treating language as detached from its speakers and focus on the speakers, their language repertoires, their language choices, and their language networks and communities of practice. However, funds for the study of endangered languages are most often distributed to linguists whose research orientation is language as a system. It would be desirable to expand such a narrow focus, enlarge it towards a language as a practice perspective, and have language documentation play a more active role in providing the information that all those who seek to maintain endangered languages most urgently need.
木自体がコルチアエビルバってない木の名称がコルチルエビルコルサシとかも深夜エビルバってない木の芯いやウレフィリピンコルチ
코르친이 없으므로 코르스시가 코르친 좀 도시가
아이비란도 오늘은 코르치 에비데 한번 싫었다 한번 코르치 우린 코르치